Hi guys, welcome to a fresh new edition of The Joe Show. You may have noticed a lot of talk online about how I can't get it done, won't leave comforts of home, and even discussing the details of my contract. Me, take less than $40 million, keep dreaming, because I'm here to stay and we're playing for keeps. Episode 3 starts now. Let's begin tonight's show with the hometown guy who's continued a legacy of excellence for the Willard basketball program. Head coach Joe Bedingfield has his team at 11-2 on the season, fighting for the top spot in the SBC Bay Division. He's done so with his wife now running the Crimson Flashes girls program and the help of plenty of coaching mentors. I had the chance to sit down with Joe for a one-on-one conversation about his life in the new year. Well, we're here with Joe Bedingfield, head coach of the Willard Flashes, and I think one of the neat things we've been able to do with this show is give a little background about our coaches and give people a little bit of inside information about what coaching's all about. So you graduated from Willard, you were part of some very successful football teams, basketball teams. Didn't start here at Willard, but you came back, you're here, I think you said it was your 7th year.
Yeah.
What made you want to come back to Willard and coach basketball?
Well, it really was kind of a family move too. The job was open. I was very happy at being at South Central. Very happy working with Brett Seidel, who was the head coach there. I was doing junior high. I had really good kids, Simon Blair and Isaiah Seidel, and all kinds of different kids and good athletes that they had later in high school. And I just thought it was an opportunity for maybe. I always lived in Willard. And an opportunity for my family to get under one roof, and I was able to get a job teaching tech, and I was teaching English at the time, so it was a different teaching job, one, and two, my wife was able to get a job at Willard. It was kind of like a package deal, and it was a family move because my kids were going to South Central at the time. My third daughter was going to start school, and Elena was teaching at Wynford at the time. And she was going to take her to Wynford and my other two kids at South Central, so it's like didn't make a lot of sense, and the opportunity presented itself, and I'm very thankful for the administration for taking the opportunity and hiring me and bring my family back here to Willard.
I think every coach, as they start their journey in the coaching field, kind of has a philosophy about how they want their team to play and what they want their program to be like. Kind of in, maybe a short few words here, what's kind of the philosophy of your program?
Well, we kind of started with great teams have great teammates, and we kind of stapled that even on our whiteboard in the locker room, and just trying to understand that we're teaching these young men more than just basketball and be a great teammate. We tell them all the time that you're going to be a part of the family one day. Obviously, you have a family, but you're going to be in charge of your household, and you're going to be a family member, and you might be a dad or. Sorry. So we just try to instill that the number one thing is to be a great teammate, and if we're going to have a chance to be a great team, and you have to be a great teammate, and hopefully that carries with them when they have their own family and when they're on their own boss and things of that nature.
I think also as coaches, we all have people that have influenced our coaching career, from when you started and then throughout. So at this point in your coaching career, who would you say kind of has influenced your coaching career, individuals or, maybe whoever, who would be like people that have modeled, that you maybe try to model your coaching after?
Well, I try to do things coming up the right way. I think a lot of times now guys want to be a varsity coach, and maybe they don't understand what it's like to be a junior high coach. So when I first came, started coaching, I was a 7th grade coach, and then Matt White hired me, and I took something from him, and then Adam Kreischer, who's at Norwalk now, had me be a JV coach when he got hired at South Central a long time ago. And then Noss, who I played for, had me for 1 year as a JV coach, had me come back to Willard. And then Dave Hershey obviously got the job after Noss, and I was able to get hired with him for 2 years. And then I tried to go out on my own for a few years at Seneca East, and that was okay. And then I went and coached junior high at South Central with Brett Seidel. So I've been under a lot of different philosophies and different head coaches, and I just took a little bit from each one of those. But I would say, I've been with Hirsch the longest, and obviously I played for Noss, and Noss, had a great impact on me in terms of wanting to be a coach and how to run a program. And then Hirsch, obviously, with his preparation, the way he studies the game and the way he loves the game, it's, enjoy really working with him. And then I took something from each one of those coaches, and I'm very appreciative of working under all those coaches. So just try to be my own coach, really. But I think you can learn so much from other people. And then, I got Nate Hill that I talked to a lot at Colonel Crawford, and David Sheldon at Colonel Crawford that I picked their brains a lot. So just a lot of different coaches in general.
Favorite part of coaching?
I think we like the process. We like learning new drills. We like the daily practice of, I know the players much rather play the games and things like that, but the strategy, the chess match, and preparing, and trying to figure out, how to get the kids to play their best basketball, and maybe get them to push them through a wall a little bit, and just seeing that progress throughout. And it's been kind of fun to see, when Max Dawson and Cam, when I first got here, they were in 6th grade. So it's kind of see the progress of those two individuals too, and what they were able to accomplish. Sometimes you think kids are going to be really good in junior high, and it pans out. Sometimes they shock you, and they take it a little bit farther than what you even thought.
Flip it 180 degrees. What's the least favorite part of coaching?
Well, I think some of the things you can't control. The least favorite part of coaching is the things that you can't control. Obviously, I've been very fortunate. I haven't had to deal with a lot of parent issues or anything like that, but just things you can't control that maybe take away the energy you need to focus in on your team, and kind of distractions. But that would probably be the best or the least favorite thing, is just overall things you can't control.
Well, you said you got this question asked of you a lot, so we're going to ask it. Your wife just took over the Willard girls program this year. I saw her this summer up at the thing at Cedar Point. How do you handle that? I mean, how does that work? I mean, because I
called David Sheldon. That's what I do. And I said, how in the heck have you done this for so long with your wife coaching? Because it's just it's been good, and obviously it's been challenging. Because she's a great mom. She does a lot of things around the house that are not getting done as much, but she's doing a good job of coaching as well. And it's been challenging, and it's good for our girls program that she loves it. She's working hard at it, and the one thing that I try to do is keep my mouth shut and just listen and not. Sometimes she's looking for some advice, but I talk to David a lot, and David says, Joe, just if they ask for advice, he goes, give it. Otherwise, just listen. I think that's the best advice.
How do your kids handled it?
The most surprising part is not my oldest daughter, because she has no choice but to handle it well. But the two youngest are 10 and 12, and they're just remarkable at things getting done at home. Like they'll have things like supper be made, and their responsibility level has really gone up. And I don't know if that's fair at times, to be honest with you, but I'm just so proud of the youngest kids, because they've handled it pretty well and they've enjoyed it so far.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, I was coaching, and we've had these discussions about coaching and your family. But I had one guy said, where could you have a better place than to have your kids in the gym with you almost every day? He said, and most people don't get that opportunity to take their kids to work, every day. And that was at the end of my career, but I thought that kind of hit home because you take a look, if your kids are able to hang around a Max Dawson, there's not a better influence that they have. So
they do that a lot.
So really appreciate you taking some time, giving a little bit of insight, and we wish the Willard Flashes the best of luck this season.
Thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Bedingfield has won 108 of his first 160 games as head coach of the Flashes and appears well on his way to a third 20-win season in just 7 years on the job. Last week, I gave you 9 nominees to consider for Coach B's Ballers, and after a fan vote, here's your winner from January 10th through the 16th. Congratulations to Alex Putnam of Cary, who dominated the fan vote this week, just like he dominated the Rams in a 5-point win at Upper Sandusky, scoring a game-high 18 points to keep the Blue Devils undefeated in Northern 10 play. Now, let's take a look at the best individual performances captured by our cameras over the past week on this edition of Coach B's Ballers. Our first nominee is Madison Hart of the Upper Sandusky Lady Rams. This sophomore post player made her presence felt in the paint against Seneca East as she scored 14 points, proving that there is still a need for post players in today's game. The Lady Rams are currently 9-6 overall and 5-4 in the N10 conference. Our second nominee is another sophomore post player, and his name is Payne DeGray of the Colonel Crawford Eagles. Payne had a double-double in the Eagles' win at Upper Sandusky by scoring 10 points and grabbing 10 rebounds. However, it was his late game block that sealed the win for the Eagles in their 35-33 win over the Rams. Crawford is now 11-3 overall and 6-10 in the N10 conference. Our third nominee is senior Dylan Bruner of the Crestview Cougars. Dylan was dialing in long-range GPS versus Lucas on Monday night as he knocked down 4 threes en route to scoring 20 points, and the Cougars go to 14-0 on the season and are ranked number 10 in the Associated Press poll and number 1 in the Max Preps RPI Division III Northwest District number 1. Our fourth nominee is Bo Dornbeer of the Clear Fork Colts. This senior starter set the table early in the Colts' recent victory over Gallion as he scored 13 points in the first half and finished with a game-high 19 points. The Colts are currently 7-7 on the season. Our fifth nominee is junior Garrett Holtz of the Clear Fork Colts also. As we just mentioned, his teammate set the table early by scoring 13 points in the first half versus Gallion. Garrett was the closer of this game as he put away the Tigers by scoring 16 of his game-high 19 points in the second half. Our sixth nominee is junior Kayla Larimore of the Centerburg Lady Trojans. Kayla is the leading scorer in the KMAC, averaging just under 20 points per game. She continued that trend by scoring 19 points in a win over Cardington. Centerburg is now 6-2 in the KMAC and 11-3 overall as the Trojans approach the stretch run of the season. Our seventh nominee is Callie Carpenter of the Fredericktown Freddies. This junior is the second leading scorer in the KMAC, averaging almost 19 points per game. Callie started hot and closed strong as she scored 21 points in a win over Mount Gilead. Callie hit 3 threes in this game against the defending KMAC champs. Our eighth nominee is senior Grant Bentley of the Northmore Knights. Grant continues to have an outstanding senior season as he scored 21 points in the Knights' second half comeback victory at Centerburg. The Knights sit atop of the KMAC at 6-1 and an overall record of 10-4. Vote now in the comment section for this week's top baller of the week. We'll post these nominees for a fan vote tomorrow to determine which of my ballers had the best performance of the week. Coming up next, two-time state champion coach and the newest member of the Ohio High School Basketball Coaches Hall of Fame, Greg Collins, joins me in studio to talk about his storied career. Okay, we're glad to welcome Greg Collins, one of the most successful coaches in the history of basketball here in the Mansfield area. He was the head coach of Lex for 7 years and then took 4 years off and came back and coached the Mansfield Tiger for 12 seasons. And Coach Collins has recently been inducted as a member of the Ohio High School Basketball Coaches Hall of Fame, a well-deserved honors. So as we've done interviews with coaches on this show, I think one of the interesting things for our viewers is to hear about a coach's journey. So like how you got started in the interest of being a basketball coach to, you know, all those years and finally ending at senior high, ending your coaching career at senior high.
Well, Joe, first and foremost, thanks for having me and thanks for doing what you did to get me inducted into the Hall of Fame. I really appreciate it. It's an honor. You know, what I felt was pressure was my first year of coaching basketball out of college, and that was an 8th grade basketball coach. It was Johnny Feasel, you know Johnny Jr., but his dad was the head coach of the varsity, and Johnny Feasel Jr. was on the team, but they were undefeated as 7th graders. So here I have them as 8th graders, an undefeated group.
Coach's son.
And a coach's son, exactly. And I went through the year and showed them how to be graceful losers a couple of times. And so they learned that from me, I guess, at that time. But, you know, I started off in coaching junior high basketball and at Olentangy High School back when it was just one school. And then John Feasel Senior took the head coaching job down at Groveport, Madison, and asked me to come down as an assistant. And I did. And, boy, those were great years for me. Actually, it was only 2 before I got the Lexington job. But I'll tell you, you know, I really I'm not sure if you started in the junior highs as a coach, but I really think that helped me. You know, like anybody getting out of college, I thought I knew it all. I was ready. Actually, when I interviewed at Olentangy, they offered me the 8th grade basketball job or the head girls basketball job. And, you know, I was thinking, you know, what the heck? I'm ready. I'm ready to be a head coach. But fortunately, I came to my senses and took the junior high coaching job with the boys and went through that process as junior high coach for, I think, 1 or 2 years, freshman coach for a year, and then as a varsity assistant for a couple of years. And to me, that was so valuable.
Yeah, I started as a JV coach at Fort Loramie, and, you know, I was the same way. I'd been a student assistant at Ohio Northern under Gail Doherty and Joe Chiappoli, and I came out kind of thinking, hey, man, I'm ready. But you soon realized that you were not ready at all.
Oh, exactly.
So you became the head coach at Lex in 1985, and it's the same year that I became a head coach at Ontario. Yep. Had a record of 129 wins, 42 losses. You won 3 district championships, 2 regional championships, and were state champions in 1989 and 91. So I guess it's always interesting, too, for our audience to maybe talk a little bit about those tournament runs and maybe some of the players you had. So let's talk about a little bit about that tournament run in 1989.
Well, it was such a great team, and you remember so many of those kids, but it was a senior-dominated team. They were a very close-knit team, and we had 3 1,000-point scorers. Yeah. You don't have that very often. But Tommy Scholl, Jeff Hepner, Don Werstilly were all people that could put the basketball in the hoop. That was not a question at all. My job was just to make sure we played a little bit of defense so we could score more points than the opposition. And one valuable piece that we picked up was an assistant coach named Tom Foster.
Yep.
I was in my, I think, 4th year as the head coach ever, 4th year at Lexington. Really the 3rd year with these seniors. They started for me as sophomores before, but I knew I needed a veteran, someone that could tell me, Greg, no, that's not going to work. Tell me what's I should be doing, and not after the fact, but before the fact. And Tom Foster, as you know,
Yep.
had great success down in Fredericktown, and I called Tom, and I don't know how I was able to get him, but he was able to make that drive up every day to Lexington, and he was so valuable to the players, but more valuable to me as a head coach, being a sounding board. And you know how important assistant coaches are, especially at that time. I needed a veteran assistant coach. And he worked with the perimeter players, which just happened to be, Don Ristilli, Tommy Scholl, and I guess Jeff Hebner was kind of both ways, and maybe I would grab Jeff a little bit and bring him down into the post, work with me. But, those 3 guys were certainly the cornerstone, but Jason Dials, Brian Thompson, Mike McGuire, Chris Hahn, people might know him as Johnny Paradise here in the area.
I just saw him like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, is that right?
I forget, we were in a store or something, and I ran across him.
Oh, I see him all the time at the Y. Just he was from a great family. He's from a great, great family. His mom and dad were just super. But anyway, those guys were all so close. And the key, even though they played other sports, they put time in the gym. They liked to play. And that was back in the days when we didn't have, in August where you had to close the gym down or, limit your basketball. Those guys would be going to soccer practice and then come in and play open gym.
And I think the team in '91 was a little bit different than the team in
Yeah,
'89.
it was a combination of junior and seniors. Jamie Fike's group, obviously, and Jamie and Brian Lesh and Scott Cooper and Ryan Fesmeyer were juniors, but you had the Brian Leshes and Matt Burns and Matt Schulers that were seniors that, they got along so well. And as they would say, a couple of those seniors dressed on the '89 team. They didn't get to play, but they would dress. Maybe they got in the last few minutes actually they got in the last few minutes of the state championship game. But they said, we felt like members of the team, but we didn't feel like we really did anything to win that state championship. So that is what motivated them to want to get back to Columbus, and not just get back there, but to do something when we get down there. And again, close-knit group that spent a lot of time in the gym. I think of Buck Morton and Matt Schuler were 2 outstanding soccer players. And they would come from a soccer game into the gym in August for open gym. They just wanted to run. And of course, as you did, I'm sure we would have alumni back that wanted to thump on the underclassmen. It was so good to have those 2 guys come in the gym and, really probably get beat up a little bit by some older guys after they just got off the soccer field. But close-knit group that just loved to play and would do, anything the coach asked them to do.
But you kind of jumped in that after 4 years, you kind of got the hunger back, and you were offered the job at senior high.
Well, I was willing to go anywhere, but the wife and the kids, they the kids were here in the area and younger at the time, and I guess they were probably elementary, middle school, and my wife, this is the first time she'd ever really been anywhere for 9, 10 years, because when she was growing up, her parents moved quite a bit. So it was really limited to this area, and what better job than Mansfield Senior. And I fortunately applied for it, and fortunately they overlooked 4 years out of basketball and said, "Hey, come on aboard."
But you take 2 teams to the Final Four in 12 years there, in 90, 99, and 2005, and in both years you lose to the eventual state champion. 1 year you lose to powerhouse Cincinnati Moeller, and then the 2005 you lose to Canton McKinley, who at that time was kind of a powerhouse too.
Right. Right.
talk a little bit about those two teams and those tournament runs, because you might be able to name some players that you had to go against in those runs.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I grew up and still am a big Notre Dame fan. And Cincinnati Muller had, I think it was Monez, something like that was going to Notre Dame. They had Sylvester that played at Ohio State. Remember him hitting the big shot against Illinois. And Carl Kramer's such a great guy, the head coach at Muller. Just a good person, but. When I see him, and I'll see him at the Hall of Fame banquet.
You guys are going in the same class.
I've got to, say how happy I am that I was there for his first state championship, and to experience it. But, and I don't know if you had, all your teams were good teams. You had some great teams. Mm-hmm. I don't know what separated them. To me, though, for mine, again, it was a group that was close-knit. Marquise Sykes, who's doing a great job at Mansfield Senior right now. I mean, he's great for the kids, was the leader of the group. And his parents were kind of the mom and dad of the group. Eva Sykes, the mom, was just a great lady, and she just kind of like mother hen of everybody on the team. I don't know if that was the year we played, I think, St. Ignatius in the regional finals, but, that was maybe one of the better games I can remember our kids playing, and we just got so hot. Everybody was just dribbling past their man for layups, or Marquise was hitting a three, or Desan Hilliard was hitting a three, I'm such a smart coach, Ricky Menard, who 5 years later would get drafted in the NBA, was coming off the bench, but he was only a junior. So,
that's right.
You can't start.
They got to earn it, man.
Yeah,
they got to earn it.
Yeah.
Well, you bring up, you mentioned some names of great players: Jamie Fike, Ricky Menard, Marquise Sykes, and Rastelli, Scholl, Hepner. You talked about the teams, those teams that were good with was that bonding that they had.
Right.
But like a Jamie Fike, a Ricky Menard, what kind of separated those players from, you've had good players. Those guys were great players.
Right.
What kind of, as you looked at them, what kind of separated those guys as being different than other players that you've coached?
Well, Ricky, I think more than Jamie, Ricky, anytime he was on the court, felt he was the best basketball player on the court. And, his confidence, it just was outstanding, and it would rub off on the other players. Ricky always wanted a challenge. If we were putting together a summer schedule of playing teams, he goes, well, hey, Kent McKinley's good. Let's make sure we get to Kent McKinley. Let's make sure we get up there. And then he would play AAU. And, his habits were just outstanding. And he also, as you said about reference, Tommy Scholl scared me for 4 years, and I hope he's exaggerating a little bit on that. Ricky was so comfortable in his own skin that you could yell at Ricky, you could tell Ricky to do something, and Ricky would accept it, and and just try to do it, but it wouldn't affect him. Like, I'm not taking that personal. He's an old man. He's not out here doing it. Yeah. I'm going to do what I can do, and I'm going to work hard. With Jamie, I don't know if you remember him as a sophomore. As a sophomore, he came off the bench for us, and that was a year after, I think it was 1990, a year that you guys came in and beat us at Lexington.
On a 5-second call, you're probably still.
I know Brian Sprengler was the referee. Brian Lesh still says, I was calling timeout, and I was glad to be there for your start of your run too that year. So that was a thrill. But Jamie just progressed each year. He didn't play anything but basketball. Really, I talk, when people ask about Jamie Fike growing up, I say, well, the community just did a great job with Jamie Fike.
Maybe talk a little bit about scouting. And I know scouting now has changed because of huddle, but maybe talk a little bit about scouting, when you were at Lex and at Mansfield Senior, kind of how you incorporated that all into a game plan and those kind of things.
Well, back then, of course, you had to do live scouting and, call up a friend and try to get a tape or two of an opponent. And nowadays, everything's on huddle. And I was glad to hear, went to a Shelby practice a few weeks ago, and Greg, the coach there, played for us at Ashland. And I said, well, you doing all your scouting on huddle? He goes, well, yeah, but I like to see teams play once also. I said, that's great, because I know too many coaches that just want to watch it on film.
Jim Ruckey was on a podcast that our Coaches Association does, and kind of that question was asked, and he kind of said the same thing. And in fact, he goes, I've filled out my calendar here, and he goes, I think I'm going to be able to see 26 games in person this year.
Yeah, exactly.
But because I think there is, and even as I got to the end of my coaching career, I'd be out on a Tuesday night, and somebody'd come over, why are you here? And
Right. Right. Oh, hey, and I remember at Mansfield, I'd have scouting trips to Youngstown, up to Cleveland to see opponents play, but
So when people
I think it's important.
When you scouted and when people went to scout for you, like, were you more concerned with like the characteristics of a player, or were you more concerned with like what a team was running?
And again, you get some guys that might scout for you that can just come back and say they're playing a 2-3 zone. But we all know that, Syracuse's old 2-3 zone is different from a lot of teams' 2-3 zones, so that they're all quite different. But when I'm able to watch them play, first and foremost, I want to know what they're doing offensively. If you can get some calls, that's even better. If they run sets, you have a good idea who their scorers are. You have a good idea going in, where they're scoring from, each player. So you know that. I want to know, unless I have a Jamie Fike inside, I want to know if a guy catches the ball with his back to the basket, is he going to turn to his left shoulder or his right shoulder? Which way is he going to go? If a guy is a big scorer and he's from the perimeter, is he a drive first, or is he just a spot shooter? All those kind of things are so important. Now, we had an advantage for most of my years that we didn't play a lot of Tuesday games.
Yep.
So, and the conference games would be on Friday, occasionally Saturday, but mostly non-league on Saturday. So you had 4 days to prepare for a team. So one thing I really believed in was we gave the kids a written test on Thursday after practice.
We did that too.
Yeah, we give them a scouting report on Monday. We go over the scouting report, and then in practice we're going to go over, maybe defense, what they do offensively Monday, Tuesday, what they do defensively a little bit Wednesday, Thursday, the player so-and-so, we can't let him go right, so-and-so, we can't let him catch and shoot, whatever it might be. And then we're going to give them a test on Thursday. I remember one test we gave, and it was the player you're going to be guarding. What is your defensive stance going to be when he catches the ball? And Brian Lesh said, well, I'm just going to block it. That was his answer on the test. I go, come on, well, that's okay if you do, but I don't know. But I think the preparation is so important.
You mentioned, it used to be kind of the Friday, Saturday thing.
Right.
So if you had Friday, Saturday game, how did you prepare for that game on Saturday through the week? Did you?
Well, it would be different.
It depends on who you play. I'm
right.
Sure, yes.
Right. Obviously, the league opponent was very, very important. Now, when we got to Mansfield Senior, there were some years where we were just so loaded that, and we might be playing St. Vincent St. Mary's on Saturday. Yep. The kids weren't really looking forward to Friday. So, it's like, well, I know they're not even thinking about the league game, so why beat it into their heads right now? Let's Monday and Tuesday, we would tell the kids, we're going to get ready for St. V. Now, coming Wednesday, we need to concentrate on the Friday night game. And it's got to be, and you're going to have a test on Thursday on the Friday night game. And then come back in on Saturday morning. And now the other thing that we incorporated there, which I see some teams doing in the area now, and it was mostly because, number one, my boys were getting older and my son was playing at Lexington. And number two, by playing an afternoon game on Saturday, we got to go scout Saturday night. So we would scout, if we were playing home and we were playing whoever, Lima Senior, I'd call them and say, listen, do you guys want to play a 1 o'clock game? And they'd think about it and they say, yeah, let's try it. And then everybody loved it when they did it. Now, it didn't affect our fans. I mean, if when I was at senior high, if we played a non-league game against nobody showed up anyway. But if we were playing a non-league game against Warren Harding, we got a good crowd. It didn't matter if we played at 9 in the morning or at 7 at night. So let's play it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I also liked it because, my wife still doesn't understand this, and I don't think most people do, but it's not like you can turn the switch off when a game's over, win or lose. I don't care if you win. It's not like you can just say, the game's over at 10. Boy, I hope to be in bed by 10:30. That's just not going to happen.
It doesn't happen.
That gave me a lot more time to
try to put it
behind you. Exactly.
And the reason I asked that Friday thing, and you brought that up, and I don't know when it was, I was talking to Bob Haas, and somehow that came up, and that's exactly what he said he would do.
That might be where I got it.
Is that he would use Monday and Tuesday to whatever shell drill stuff.
Right.
Defensively, this is what we're going to do. But then when it came Wednesday, Thursday, that focus had to be on that game.
Right.
On Friday. So my final question is: after you retired, you went to Ashland and you helped John Ellenwood.
Oh, you know John. What a great guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So you've kind of been exposed to the shot clock. And
love it.
Okay, that was going to be my question. How do you feel about the shot clock coming into high school basketball?
We need it, I think. But I thought we needed it before too many teams holding the ball, I think, and being so patient to the extent of they run a set for their star player. If that star player doesn't get a shot, they pull it out, run another set for that star player, pull it out, run a different set for that star. And I, it's like, well, I remember Jeff Hepner went to Ohio University, and they did have a shot clock, but Jeff, his freshman year, started for Ohio University, and they had I believe it was the Jamison brothers, were very good scorers. And Jeff said, we have 4 or 5 sets where I'm not allowed to see the ball. If the ball's over here, I got a screen over there, and vice versa. And it's like, oh, gee, at the end of the shot clock, what happens if you're open?
This was interesting. I have a nephew that coaches at Pettysville, small school in Northwest Ohio, and he has a player that's at Ohio Northern and is getting to play quite a bit as a freshman. And so we had this discussion in the fall, and he said his player came back and goes, man, coach, he goes, I love the shot clock. I wish it'd be in high school. And he goes, and it wasn't for offensive stuff. He goes, he loved it for defense because he was like, we know we got to play defense for whatever it is, 30, 35 seconds, and that's what we have to do. So
well, and you look, when I was up at Ashland, all of John's defensive drills, all the breakdowns, you played defense, whether it was keeping the ball from the lane, keeping the ball on the right side. It was for a certain amount of time of 15 seconds or something like that. And you watch, if you give just a token pressure, it's not to steal the ball, it's just to take some time off that shot clock. And I don't know, I know it'd be logistically, it'd be tough.
I mean, somewhat initially, but kind of after listening to coaches, I think it's eventually going to get here within the next 3 to 5 years. But I think it could be good for high school basketball. I mean, I think it would. I mean, people have said it's going to take, it would take away a team's ability to, let's say,
were playing St. V and we
The
were
gate.
up by, that we're going to hold it. But I've heard it on the other standpoint too, is you have really good teams that if they're not playing real well, they'll get up 6 and they'll hold it against a really bad team. And,
Well, remember back in the day before the shot clock in college, remember Dean Smith putting in 4 corners, and his philosophy was if we're up by more points than time on the clock, we're going to hold the ball. So that means a 10-point lead with 9 minutes to go.
Phil Ford.
Phil Ford was the it's like, well, geez, that's not much fun to watch, but
well, I do need to tell one story, and I don't know if you'll remember this, but if you remember, there was a year or 2 years where you guys at senior high were really good, we were really good, and Willard was really good. And so in the fall, we had open gym, and we rotated between Ontario, senior high, Willard, and I think we went to it was over 6 weeks, we went to everybody's place twice. Mm-hmm. So we had a really good team, and the next year I remember you called and you go, hey, you still want to do the open gym thing? And I said, I'm not really sure. I said, because most of my guys are playing football, and I said, we're not going to be really good. And you were like, oh no, that'll be fine. So you guys came out to our place, and you just throttled us.
yeah.
And Mike Ham was my
That's part of my wins, by the way.
Mike Ham was my assistant at that time, and I forget you left the gym, and I go, Greg, we're not having open gym with them again. They're not coming back, and you didn't.
Well, we were never short of talent. I think that might have been the same year that when you
it
guys
was like
were,
when Dials or Langhurst was playing at Willard.
right.
Yeah.
Willard was coming over to our place, and you were coming over for an open gym, and Greg Nossman walks in the gym, and we have you remember the basket protector for rebounding drills?
Yep.
We had it was on the basket. This is at the old gym.
Yep.
And Greg looks at it and goes, what, rebounding drills in the fall? I said, no. I said, we have lunchtime up here. This is to keep the kids off the main hoop of grabbing the rim. They can grab the other ones, but they can't grab. But he thought we were having practice in fall, rebounding drills.
Well, I really appreciate you coming in. I think this has been great, and of course would again like to congratulate you on being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And for any viewers out there that would like to attend, the induction ceremony is on Saturday, April the 27th. It's at 6 p.m. at the Marriott. Again, Coach Collins, thanks for coming in.
Thank
Greatly
you, Joe.
appreciated. Coach Collins.
Hey.
Welcome back to the Joe Show. I am OH Report founder Brian Skowronski, and I have got your top cuts of the week coming at you right now from January the 17th through the 23rd. Spin those clips. Here comes the top 10 cuts of the week, presented exclusively by Buckeye Horizon. Let's get stingy to tip off our countdown, as in no soup for you on the fast break coming up here for Centerburg, because Northmore's Jackson Wenger makes up ground quicker than a cheetah on a conveyor belt as he rocks the block in a come-from-behind road win. More defense making its way onto the countdown, but Grace Walton's cashing in her freshly pilfered loot for a pair of points at the other end with this primetime dime to Madison Hart. All part of a 19-point win over Seneca East as the Lady Rams get it done at the mountaintop. The circus is in town at number 8, but it's a 2-ring circus with the 1-2 punch of Jarek to Tyson Ringler, helping keep Crestview undefeated with a home win here over Lucas. Check out the slick feed in traffic, and the power of the ring gives Cougar Nation a reason to go wild. Let's head back to the heart of Ohio now, where Tiara Shepard throws an extra scoop on the cone to help the Trojans bag Cardington. We're going to check out the hang time again and the finishing ability with their offhand and a monster win over the K-Mac leaders. We're going deep at number 6, and Holden Darris just brought one hand to the party. I mean, what a snag here in transition, and finishes off the bucket in a swarm of eagles. We'll have to take one more look, show off the sticky fingers before Darris puts it back into the honey pot amongst the trees in the crowded lane. Northmore trailed the entire game at Centerburg until this fourth quarter and won from leading scorer Grant Bentley as he rises to the second story for the offensive board and then muscles his Golden Knights into the lead. Northmore stays on top of the K-Mac standings with a big comeback victory. We've got some ballin' Hotes coming in at number 4, and Garrett, a man-heater for the Clear Fork offense, burning up a 3-pack of Galleon defenders as he spins like carnival teacups through a double team and finishes off the beautiful up and under. More fancy footwork on our next top cut, where Aubrey Thomas slices through the Freddy's defense like a samurai sword in a soft cheese factory. We'll slow it down so that you can see all 4 defenders totally helpless against the step through, plus the foul and a left-handed finish to boot. At number 2, Big Walnut's Trent Miner's going to be working in the post for what he thinks is easy money, but Landon Vanderwarker delivers the rejection letter using his 6'8" frame to bring the pain. Big monster swat for Delaware Hayes, who would take control of the OCC with a win. And at number 1, take you down to the Jared Solinger Classic at Reynoldsburg. Shake and bake up top from Micah Young of Westerville North. We're drawing a second defender, and Vari Adams smashes the two-handed slam in a win over Akron Buckdole. It looks even sweeter in slow-mo. Filthy handles on the drive, sucks in the defender, and Young sets up Adams for the big-time throwdown. Drop us a comment. Let me know what you think about the order of my top cuts. Did I get them all right this week? Should that be the number 1 play? Get the debate going down here in the comment section. We'll now toss it over to Travis and Joe. They're standing by. They've got your second edition of this season's Country Roads Rankings.
This is Big Leagues Country Roads Rankings. Yoo-hoo!
Welcome back to the Joe Show. I am Travis Big League Berardi, back here with the second edition of my Country Roads Rankings, the top 5 girls and boys squads out of Divisions 3 and 4 here in North Central Ohio. And as always, thank you for having me on, Joe. I know you're looking forward to these rankings.
We really missed you for 2 weeks that we welcome you back.
I know, yeah, I shot the stats leaders by myself, and I know Joe missed me, but I'm back, buddy. I'm back for this one. As always, let's get right into it. Ladies first. So now to my top 5. Number 5, the Clear Fork Colts. The Lady Colts, they did what they needed to do. They knocked off Galleon, they knocked off Ontario. They could have played Pleasant in a big game in the MOAC and for seeding, but that game got postponed due to snow. It's coming on in the next week. But I have them moving up because Danville, who was number 5, they've dropped 2 straight, a couple bad losses. Clear Fork was just on the outside looking in, therefore I switched them up. So at number 5, the Clear Fork Lady Colts. At number 4, the Cary Lady Devils. 13-2, their losses to Colonel Crawford by 5, to Upper Sandusky by 2, and they take on Colonel Crawford on Saturday, another team you may see here in my rankings, Joe, but Cary moving up. The Northern 10's always stacked, Joe.
Yep. The Northern 10 is a really good league, and I think we're going to find that as you go through your rankings here.
Yeah, no bias against any other leagues. It's just these teams are really, really good. Speaking of Crawford, though, the Lady Eagles are my number 3 squad this week. They are 14-1. They had that tough loss to Wynford by 19 points. But other than that, they've taken care of business, and they have a huge one coming up next Wednesday. They host Loudonville, and that is a big game, not only for seeding, but it shows where both of these teams will be at this point of the season.
Yeah, and I think that's really neat that those 2 teams can match up, especially at this time of the year, because that's really a challenge, and it's going to give you a really good gauge as you start to approach that stretch run and prepare for the tournament, because I'm assuming that's probably going to be a tournament-type atmosphere.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's going to be tournament-type play. So that's going to be a good gauge for both of those teams. Whoever wins or loses, they're going to learn a lot from that.
And they're going to get a lot of RPI points to help them out as well. And those 2 teams also, they both dropped the squad that just not having a great year probably wouldn't help them get ready for the tournament, so they dropped those teams, scheduled each other. I think that's a great move by both coaches. My number 2 team, staying at number 2, the Pleasant Lady Spartans. They're at 15-2. They went 3-1 since our last update. They lost to Clear Fork by 9 points, and then they played down at the Hickory Hoosiers gym in Indiana, which I think is a cool thing. However, they lost to a really good Minster squad by 24 points. I think any team, if you want to get some like sports history into there for movies and things like that, go play at the Hickory gym. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a fun place.
It's a neat experience. I mean, we did not do it, but we had I had a meeting in Indianapolis 2 summers ago, and we stopped on the way home. And it's a cool experience. But I've had several coaches that have done that experience, and it's something that their players are going to remember forever. So I think, if I was looking at it as a coach now, it would probably be something that whether you could play there. You mentioned Northmore had gone there and just kind of
The
did
boys
a
practice there,
open
yeah.
gym practice there. It's a cool experience because Ohio high school basketball, I'll compare that even to Indiana high school basketball. And that story's a great story.
Did you run the picket fence when you were there?
No, we did not. But I did sit on the bench and did a couple photos of
That's
of
awesome.
the coach.
Gene
So,
Hackman right
yep,
here, Joe Balogh.
yeah.
My number 1 team, no surprise, it's Loudonville. Now, Loudonville did lose a game at Warrensville Heights, Division III, but they are the defending district champs in D3. In that tournament run last year, they lost in a regional semifinal to Chippewa, who played for a state championship. They get a lot back, and you were telling me there's 4 or 5 districts that the district that they're in, the Northeast District, breaks into. There's 46, 47 teams. They're second in the RPI out of all those teams. So yeah, Loudonville had a tough test. They lost by I think 11 or 12, but it was to a really good team like Pleasant, so they stay at my number 1 team.
And it's good. I mean, I think Coach Bates is doing a good job with the schedule as he's really challenging his team as they make this stretch run, that's really where you're going to find out what your team is about. But the thing that, they have, if not one of the best players in the state of Ohio, that's probably going to be up for, Player of the Year in all divisions in Corey Vermilia. She just continues to have an outstanding year. And when you have a player like that, that a player like that can carry you a long, long way.
And they have some more tough tests. Like I said, they have Colonel Crawford next Wednesday. They also have Akron and Ellett coming up. So they're going to be battle tested and ready for when the tournament comes. So there's my top 5. Clear Fork, Cary, Crawford, Pleasant, and Loudonville. Any objections there, sir?
Nope, I don't think so. I mean, I think, you kind of mentioned Clear Fork had a couple big wins, and also with their schedule, they've kind of earned that spot to be in the top 5. As we mentioned, the Northern 10, that league is really, really good. So as you get to this grind in January and the stretch run, it's always interesting to see how teams overcome. I mean, because you're going to have bumps and bruises, but there's going to be injuries. There's going to be people that are sick. You're fighting, snow days last week. So this part of the season, it's always interesting to see kind of which teams start to separate themselves from the rest of the pack.
And then a team just on the outside, Centerburg. They got a big one against Cardington coming up this week. If you get a couple losses ahead of them, maybe they'll jump in for my next edition. Now on to the boys, and this one's been kind of jumbled. Some teams in my top 5 have lost, some teams, making a move, and I'll start with a couple teams just on the outside looking in. First, the Northmore Golden Knights. They're back to 100%. They had a big comeback victory against Centerburg. They have 2 games this week, a chance to move that up. And then the Lucas Cubs. Nothing against the Lucas Cubs and their schedule, but they lost 2 tough ones in the last few games. They lost to Crawford by double digits, and then a game you did, Joe, against Crestview. They lost by double digits there. Not saying they can't work their way back in, but at this moment, they're just sitting on the outside looking in. But to my top 5, and like you said, it's Northern 10 heavy. There's nothing against anybody else. It's just this Northern 10 schedule is really, really packed. My number 5, it's the Wynford Royals. You talked to a couple of the Royals this past week. They're 10-3. They went 1-1 since the last update. They lost to Cary by 7, Crawford by 2, and then Seneca East by 8. Seneca East is an up-and-coming team, so despite the loss, they still stay in my top 5.
And Wynford, if anybody watches Wynford play, they may be the most athletic team in this top 5. I mean, they've got size, they've got length, and then they've got skill. So it'll be interesting to see. They're 10-3 right now. How are they going to be in the next 2 weeks, and then how will they be, in about 4 or 5 weeks from now when the tournament starts?
Yeah. Number 4, team I just mentioned, Seneca East. They jumped their way into my rankings this week. They knocked off Crawford at Crawford. They beat Wynford as well. Their losses carried by 5. They lost to a good Margaretta squad, and then the Mohawk squad it's kind of up and down. Mohawk would be in here, but they have 5 losses this season, but their wins are really good wins. So that's a team maybe looking to get in as well. But Seneca East, they're starting the peak at the right time.
Well, in Seneca East, you mentioned the 2 wins. The win was at Crawford, and then the win was at Wynford.
Yes, at the old gym, too.
At the old gym, and it was kind of a situation where they were playing in the new gym. The JVs played in the new gym, but the clock wasn't working, so they moved to the old gym. So being able to adjust to that, not just going on the road, but being able to adjust, when you're planning on playing in the new gym and going to the old gym is a little bit different. So Seneca East is a team that's on the rise.
Yeah. My number 3 team, another Northern 10 squad. It's Cary, baby. The Cary Devils, 9-4. They were 1-1. They lost to Old Fort. They lost to Willard, Bluffton, and then Mohawk by 1 point. Another, Mohawk maybe starting to come up now. They got everything together, but my Cary Blue Devils, they are the number 3 team. At number 2, jumping up this week, the Colonel Crawford Eagles. They had that big win over Lucas. They've also knocked off Mohawk, and they've defeated Upper 11-3. They went 3-0 since my last update, so they move up a spot to number 2. And then number 1, just like Loudonville on one side, it's Crestview on the other side. A very impressive win, as you saw, against Lucas.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with any of those rankings. I mean, you look at a Crawford team that's, they're playing a lot different style than maybe they played the past 2, 3, 4 years. But those kids are believing in it. And they're winning a lot of close games. You look at Cary. Cary's a team that's at the top of the N10, and that's what's interesting. I think that was probably the second time I believe they played Mohawk, so they're in the second round. So when you make those adjustments, but you can't argue with Crestview being at the top. John Kurtz has that team playing really, really well. The thing that's most impressive about Crestview is they have 5 guys that can score.
They do.
I mean, they have 5 guys. I mean, literally any of the 5 guys can get 20 at any night. So when you're a team that's preparing to play Crestview, as a coach, that's one of the hardest things to do when you know you have to guard all 5 guys on the floor. So again, Crestview, record-setting season last year, even setting more records this year. They're going to be a team that you're looking at has a great chance to go undefeated for the regular season.
And they're going to need that balance when they go up against a team like Margaretta in the district tournament. But I think they're the best test that Margaretta would probably have in that tournament bracket.
Yeah, I mean, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know. That's why you play the game, right?
Because the other part is, as I just mentioned earlier, is there's going to be some type of adversity that usually comes, and many times that's an injury, somebody getting sick, something like that. And I don't know if Crestview's gone through any of that yet, but there's going to be some parts here maybe in the next few weeks that they're going to maybe be tested by somebody that would surprise us.
Yeah. So there you have it, the boys' rankings. Number 5, Wynford. Number 4, Seneca East. Number 3, Cary. 2, Crawford. And number 1, Crestview. I'll be back next week with another edition of Stat Leaders. But for now, Joe, appreciate being on.
Always good. For our final segment on the Joe Show tonight, we spotlight one of the top scorers and rebounders the Northern 10 has to offer. Wynford's Grant McGuire is having a career year in his senior season and enjoying plenty of team success with a 10-3 mark as the Royals find themselves in the thick of a league title chase. I took a trip around the arena with Grant to find out more about this senior captain. All right, we're here with Grant McGuire, the Wynford Royals, for this edition of Around the Arena. Grant, your team's currently 9-3, but if you take a look at your 3 losses, you've lost to three pretty good basketball teams. So this week starts the second half of your season. You got 12 games in. As you look to the second half, kind of, what do you look at as the goals of you and your team as you approach the second half?
I mean, after our three losses, they were tough losses, tough teams. So we know that we're a pretty good team, and they're all close games. So as we go in the second half of the season, we want to, when we get to those tough teams, we want to kind of get over the edge and beat those teams because we know we can beat the other ones. So as long as we beat those tough teams, then we'll have a pretty good record.
So as we talk to players doing this segment, one of the things is that usually there's people that have influenced you in your career. So you mentioned that basketball and baseball, you're going to have a chance to go to college and play baseball too. But who would be those people that you would say, hey, have been a big influence in your athletic career?
My dad and my uncle. I mean, they've always pushed me to do my best and work as hard as I can. And in my sports career, they've really helped me.
As I mentioned to you before the interview, Wynford, Ontario was a big rivalry, in those 80s and 90s. And, when you mention Wynford, people are going to think Wynford basketball. So what's it kind of mean when you put that Wynford Royal basketball uniform on? What's that mean to you?
It means a lot because I know the history. My family's been a part of it, and it's just awesome to put it on and know that I'm part of a good history, and it's just awesome.
Players try to improve each year, so how do you think you've improved as a player from last season to this season?
I became more physical. I've been in the weight room a lot, so
we can tell that.
Rebounding and just getting down and banging around it's just a lot more easier this year.
So you mentioned, you really enjoy baseball, but you also enjoy basketball. What do you enjoy most playing about basketball?
Just the competitiveness. There's a level of competitiveness in basketball that you just can't find in baseball, at least not at the high school level. And it's really fun, and I've always enjoyed it.
So when you're not playing basketball, what's your favorite things to do?
Work out, play video games,
Kind of a typical high school kid there.
Yeah.
If you had a favorite athlete that you kind of, you model yourself after, who would that person be?
Work ethic, probably Alex Bregman, who plays for the Astros, because, I watch a lot of videos on him. He's always working hard, and I like his swing, so for baseball, him, and I don't know, that's pretty much it.
So, pre-game meal, what's your food you go to prepare yourself for a game?
Pretty much anything. I like Chipotle or some Arby's. Arby's is good.
You're a senior here. Got to play a lot of basketball games. Who's the toughest player you had to play against?
Oh, geez. Probably my sophomore year. We played against Carter Valentine and Mason Studer for Crawford, and they were really hard to play against because, how do you guard someone who can dunk and shoot from volleyball line?
So you've had many memories here in your high school career. What's the best memory you've had so far in your high school career?
Probably last year when we beat Crawford in overtime in the old gym. That was really sweet. And then in baseball, we made it to district semis. So both those were pretty cool.
So one of the things many times the OHA reports has you do is you can give shout outs to anybody you would like. Is anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
Just shout out to my family for supporting me through everything.
All right, Grant McGuire with Around the Arena. Thanks, Grant.
Thank you.
Best of luck, man.
Thanks.
Grant and the Royals get to play 6 of their final 9 games at home to close out the regular season, with a great chance to earn a top 3 seed in the Division III Norwalk District. That's going to do it for tonight's show. Big thank you to our big new fans who are welcome to enjoy the show in any outfit or setting that feels good, whatever that may mean to you. And thanks for sharing your love for the show with the younger generation, because Joe loves the kids. So drop the top and let the sun shine in. Till next week, stay fresh, everyone.